But then we have work items like proximity services and multicast and broadcast, which are not dedicated to a single vertical industry. They can be used by many different industries, the autonomous cars, the mission critical or public safety people, the broadcasters, transport, and so on. So there's these technical items that we see here now in these new features. They are practically a toolbox that can be used by many, many different verticals, and that's exactly what we are striving for in 5G, that we're not resolving the requirements of single players, but that really all these requirements come together in common technologies, and that we can then use synergies on a technical, but also on a service level. And then on the enhancement side, of course, we do the usual things. We enhance the slicing capabilities, also the edge computing capabilities. We look much deeper into network automation and network orchestration. So the whole configuration of the network, setting up the network, running the slices, this all will be enhanced with release 17. On the next slides, I just put in detail the work items and study items that we have. I will not go through that in detail, but I think it gives a good overview of where we are at this moment in the different working groups for release 17. And then on this slide number 15, we have 3GPP release 18. So I said already, so far only the requirement side SA1 has started on new work items. You see them listed here. They are all in their starting phase, so they have not been looked at in more detail. Timeline and content of that release have not been agreed. So we don't know when any stage 1, 2, or 3 free state will appear. We have not discussed which issues that are currently listed will be in or will be out of release 18. And this is also premature. We have to wait until the work starts in stage 2 to be able to hold such discussions. This is also how we usually do it. And under the current situation, we really need to fully focus on the completion of release 16 and starting up and getting forward with release 17. And then on my last slide, I want to come back on the 3GPP improvements that we started a while ago. So practically the goal here is to make 3GPP more accessible for new delegates and also new companies who join our work and who are not familiar with our work. It's not always easy to understand the rituals and ceremonies that we are following. So there is a need that we give background information, that we make it easier for newcomers. So we had these newcomer introduction sessions. I think we had like 5 or 6 of them held over the course of the Q4 in 2019. It was lots of interest. Many people joined there. There were very good discussions. So this is really something that is very well accepted, and we see also it's needed. And we plan currently to have a webinar in the second quarter. We still have to see when this would be feasible, but I hope we can set up something like that, and you will be informed about that on the 3GPP news site. We also installed a mentoring process that is in its very beginning, and all these activities, they are stalled at the moment, obviously due to the organizational work we had to do due to the crisis hitting us. But now we're planning to pick this up, so we will define better and more what the mentoring process is and how newcomers can communicate with more experienced delegates on a informal level, let's say, where it's not always driven only by technical issues in the room. And then we have also the 3GPP liaison persons to other standards and industry bodies. And we started making our work items a bit more traceable when they're running through the different groups. But as said, we have to wait a bit with this and pick it up once we have a stable setting for the working groups to do their technical work in the upcoming months. And that's it from my side, from the presentation, and I'm happy to answer your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Georg. Yeah, I've got a couple of questions on here. It's just knowing what I've got a question about release 17 prioritization for you, but perhaps a specific question that might help answer that as well is that the question that's coming online here, which is release 17 will be of key importance for integrating the verticals requirements into 3GPP 5G, so that the ecosystem can develop properly. And especially with the people starting to talk about 6G, you know, sort of beyond this work. The question here is, are you confident in the results from 3GPP, and particularly the output from SA6 in this area? So do you have a view on that, Georg?
Okay, that's a very good question. It's three questions, and it's fine. I'm happy to answer them. First of all, I want to say on 6G, I'm personally very hesitant to give out a headline 6G. What we are doing now is 5G, and we have a very clear plan on what we want to do, especially with the verticals, to get forward with that. Whether we will really go for a completely new system in 6G, I don't know. We had in the past, for example, for 4G, we called it LTE, and then LTE Advanced, LTE Advanced Pro, and so on. So we were able to include new technologies in an existing mobility generation by enhancing it. And I would be, or at least I think that we need to look into 5G, how, if it can be advanced or enhanced in such directions. I think this is the first way we need to go. Am I confident? Well, if I look at, before I go to SA6, what I want to say is here on this slide 8 that I show now, what we see is that the impact of the vertical industries now reaches the core system. It is in RAN. It is in the core network. It's not only on the service level. So we're really changing our equipment. We are really changing the basic system in order to make it possible for verticals to work with this system in the best way. And I think this is the most important message from release 17. We are taking this serious. Proximity services, multicast and broadcast, satellite integration, all these things, they will be there. They will be there in the products that will be rolled out with release with the 5G stamp on. And this is the guarantee that verticals will have a base to work on. Now on SA6 specifically, I mean, to be honest, it's the first group that now started working on release 17 items in a very detail, besides SA1, obviously. But on the stage 2 level, yes, I'm very confident. I think SA6 has a good tradition. They have the right people in the room to talk with a very strong focus from the vertical industries on what they need from the system. And I also see that we're getting more and more into coordination between SA6, SA2, and SA6 and the RAN groups, also with the CT groups that do the APIs. So I have confidence that this work, as it was, especially as it was picked up so early now, that this will go forward and help us will help the verticals to integrate.
Just a question on the verticals, Georg. In your experience, which is the best way into 3GPP? Is it via an association, or is it to come in via a company joining the project as a company and coming in that way, or is it better for the associations to gather requirements and come in that way? Have you seen both, and is there one that sort of works more effectively than the other?
Well, in 3GPP, only companies can participate, but in general, the verticals, or some of the verticals, are organized in outside separate bodies like 5GAA, ESOA for the satellites, or 5G ACIA in the industrial IoT realm. So my perspective is that once these organizations are there, they give a much stronger weight to the work that the verticals do in 3GPP. Also, these associations or industry bodies, they usually have a so-called MRP, market representing body, a partner in 3GPP, so they get a special status in 3GPP. They can report and so on. I think this is a very good way to go, because it ensures that the different companies from that vertical have already talked beforehand and made up their mind what they want from 3GPP. If a new vertical comes in from a new sector as a single company, that's obviously possible, and there's nothing to say against this. But I would say that in such a respect, it would be most likely better to first look at the established 3GPP landscape, the technical landscape, and look on detailed issues to work on. Like, can some of the requirements be fulfilled by the ongoing work in IoT or in SiteLink or whatever, so that the focus should be maybe in such a scenario more in reusing the existing technologies. In general, the starting point for new verticals should be SA1. It's the requirements group, is where people try to come up with coherent specifications that then can be used by the other working groups in 3GPP. So if you're new, if you want to join 3GPP, if you want to get a first idea, please come to SA1 if you have already quite clear ideas. Also, the plenaries are a very good starting point to get an idea of what is currently going on.
Right. Yeah, and maybe moving it to sort of the SA2 level, because you mentioned in the presentation that for release 17 specifically, some of the content may have been deprioritized and won't make it into release 17. What happens to those proposals, some of which would have come from SA1 as requirements from the verticals? What happens next for those that content, those features?
Yeah, that's as I said, we do this in every release. There are usually two ways what happened, or two things that can happen to these proposals. Some of them, they will not be brought in again. So some people say, okay, maybe we don't need it, because the work we are doing now in release 17, it will solve a lot of issues, obviously. So maybe these initial ideas, they will be sort of resolved, maybe in different ways, but nevertheless. And then some of these issues, if companies are willing, they can bring them into release 18. So practically they can say we still have the requirements on stage 1 level, and then make a related proposal in SA2 for release 18, and then they will be evaluated again. And that is we had several issues now in release 17 that came in practically because they were shifted, or they did not make it through in release 16. And I think this is a very successful way. It also allows us to decouple certain issues. So to, for example, do a basic approach to one area in the first release, now in release 17, and then a second or third step in later releases. And I think this is a way that worked good for us. Yeah.
Super. Gil, we've come to the end of our 30 minutes. I'd just like to thank you very much, and to thank the audience for the presentation. Thank you very much, Gil.
Thank you very much. Thank you, and all the best, and stay healthy. All the best. Bye-bye.
Bye now.